Hi guys, JT Gamer here from Printability, and today I'm going to be showing you a project that I've been working on over the last few weeks. This is a project that I've loved doing, but it has meant that I've had to stop posting videos just because it's taken a long time, and I've been working, and I've just been doing a lot of stuff, had a lot of stuff on my plate. But if you can tell by the title, this is an exoskeleton for my arm. Well, it's the prototype, and it's only the start of it. But as you can see, this is all the assembly. There's 126 pieces in total, and it's got a mixture of blue and black PLA plastic and a white flexible filament. So this is it fully built, and this is just me trying it on. The only reason I'm miking over this part is because my girlfriend was watching TV, and I realised that the audio in the background was just made it awful, so I just thought I'd just talk over it instead. So this is me trying it on without gluing it in place, and as you can see, some of these parts fit perfectly and some of them are a little bit loose. There's nothing bad going on here, but it's just, it was something that I needed to address, but I wanted to show a full assembly before I glued it in place. So these little white parts I'm showing you here that moving up and down, well, the white and black parts, I designed that ring so that it would fit on my bicep no matter if I tensed or if I wasn't tensed, it would always stay in the same position. And this meant that my shoulder wasn't taking all of the weight straight away. I know it will eventually, but it meant that it would stay rigid to a spot without hurting me or without me doing some kind of velcro strap or string. It all just stays in place and locks onto that position comfortably. And that part I think had alone I think it had 92 pieces. It may have had 96, I wasn't sure. And this is where I start to mess up, because I accidentally put the wrist part on, which is the only part that wasn't glued in place and had to be detached by the end, and that is because it specifically fit around my wrist, and I explain that later in the video. And this is where stuff starts to mess up. Only a little bit. Well, as you're about to see. And there we go. As you can see, those bits needed to be glued in place. The rubber was tight, but then once I knocked them to the side, it had a bit of an air gap in there and it just fell off. So I thought I'd put the wrist parts on first and then work on the actual forearm, I guess you could call them poles, afterwards. So this probably took me about 3 weeks to make, and I've been struggling with it because there's loads of different aspects. I've got to work on which parts of my arm move. I did a bit of research on the muscles, only a little bit though because I've been working a lot too. And to be honest, the only part of this that isn't 3D printed are the pins that hold the wrist in place, and you can see I just missed it. But I'm really proud with how this has turned out so far. For a prototype, it looks awesome to me. However, I mean, there's lots of places I could improve upon. Whereas it's very wide, it's very thick. I want to make it in the future be very versatile and like move a lot. And there you can see that part really needs to be glued in place because it just does not stay. And there's me getting distracted by the TV, of course. But yeah, I hope you guys are liking this. If you're not already subscribed, then I definitely subscribe. I'm going to be posting a lot about this in the future, and I think this project will be awesome by the end of it, and I'll explain that later on in the video anyway. So now I'm just going to show you the gluing process, as I didn't glue all of the parts together, only the ones that I really needed to. So the poles that connected from the forearm to the wrist, and the connections from the back of the bicep. Just wanted to make them strong just because they're only on one point and it's only a 5x5mm space that they're connected to. And then obviously the hinges needed to be glued in place just because they were a bit weak and they just had a part that slotted on top, and I didn't quite print it with the right setting on my printer. And of course those rubber parts which fell off earlier, and that just made me realise that I needed them in place. And there's the last part for the forearm, so now it can't detach. So here is the final prototype idea. So it's all glued in place except for a couple of bits which didn't need to be. So you just take these two pins out. I'm just going to keep them in my mouth. Make sure that you've got the elbow going the same way as your elbow would. Slide it on. So it's in kind of the correct place. Doesn't have to be perfect at that point. Move my bracelet to the side. The only tricky part is going to be this wrist joint, and that's only because it's specified to fit my wrist. but in the future it'll be something that kind of just snaps into place a lot easier. All of this is just a prototype, as I said, so it will be better in the future. It'll be much more compact, it will be close to my arm, but yeah, there we go. So does the bends, does the twists, there's a little bit of movement here, which is fine by me. You see it just a little bit there. So yeah, there's that. Now this project will be used as a controller. It's not going to be your run-of-the-mill exoskeleton. It's not going to be like, it's not going to help me lift. It's actually going to control a robotic arm that I'm going to be building in the future. And I don't have a lot of experience with building robotic arms or anything along those lines. I built one for college, but it was very mediocre. It was wood and a couple of 3D printed parts. I think that project had over 200 3D printed parts that I designed. But I'm going to be using only DC power, so only plug-in parts. It will be cheap, it won't be anything crazy, but it will be something that I work on in the future until I get a fully finished project. But as this one's only a prototype, it's only fair that I make a prototype arm that this connects to. Now this is only a couple of steps in there. As you can see, I've only got 2 means of movement. I also need to control the angle or pitch of the hand. I also need to measure the arm for when I go back and forwards, and also shoulder when it goes to the sides. So that's 2 more movements. So in total that'll be 2 there, 2 here, and 1 there. So that's 5 movements, which means I can't quite control it with an Arduino Uno. I can only do that. I can only control 2 movements at a time. So I'm gonna have to find a way to go past that. Again, a bit more in the future that will be. But as a way of controlling it, I have one of them on the floor. I have these little encoders. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. So this is an encoder made for a Arduino. Well, I think made for anything, but this one I got because it said it was specifically for it. Now these are like a variable resistor, or I can't remember what the other word is for them, whereas they twist on the spot, like a dimmer switch almost, but instead of them just lowering and increasing the resistance, this gives a digital output of a negative or a positive depending on which way you twist it. So if I have one of these on the elbow joint, say, every time I twist, that will twist and send the Arduino a signal, which will then convert it into a motor. So convert it into an electronic pulse, taking that to the motor, making it move one way or the other for the same amount of time and duration. Now going back to my college project, I'll put a picture of it on the video there. I used very simple motors. I used these little DC motors. They're geared, so they just run off a 9-volt battery, very slow. Don't even think you can see it. There you go, little gearbox there. High torque, but I mean they weren't great, they were very slow. And the only other motors I'd used were these tiny little DC motors, and they are awful fast, but they have no torque whatsoever. So hopefully in this project I'll be working with stepper motors. These are 3D printer grade stepper motors, the same ones I have on my printer, or maybe even drill motors just for the speed, and I just threw it on the floor. Now the way I'm going to be controlling the arm is not going to be piston actuated or anything like that. It is actually going to be using oops, I'm just going to put it on the cupboard. Can't actually see what they are. That sound. These are 10mm threaded bolts without the bolt heads, and these will convert my rotational energy, so twisting them sideways, into linear energy, linear movement going across there using bolts, using nuts even. So I've got 20 of these 10mm nuts, hex nuts, and these will be held still on the side, and once this twists it will move it back and forth slowly, but if I can have a fast motor speed, hopefully that won't be too slow, but if that's not powerful enough, my plan would be to, if say I had this much used to control the arm, I would cut it in half and have 2 motors going opposite directions, and that would increase the speed by 2 because it has half the distance to travel. but I still have a lot of work to do with this one. I will show you a couple of drawings that I'm making of the general arm design, and in the next video I will show the shoulder mount and how I'm working on that, because I think that one's going to be a bit more difficult because there's a lot more movement going on up here. I've got collarbones to worry about, and also how am I going to like strap it to my clothes, all of that. There's still plenty of work to be done there, but for the most part this part of the project is sorted and done. I'll probably have to change out the wrist part there just so I can get that kind of hinged movement with my hand. We have a part that goes around my thumb. But I think for the prototype this is a great idea, well, in my opinion. Yeah, I think I really like it. These are just some either prototype parts, this one was, or we've got some failed prints or bits that are broke. Nothing too much here, there's just some little bits, those are the wrong size, different angles, just different trials. It was all trial and error with this project, so I wasn't really sure exactly what I was doing, but I got there in the end. Does go to show that there is wastage, but I do end up working with some awesome projects, and I will definitely be keeping all these bits on the side to be used in the future. I hope you guys like this video, and stay tuned for the next one, and I'll explain kind of what I'm going to be working on. I've cut the metal parts, the screw threads for the arms, and I'll be explaining that in the next video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please leave a like and a comment, and be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!